Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So, just wanted to make a really quick little video here for you in terms of ranking in the tier list all the Total War games ever. Since, well, basically since people have been asking me this on and off a little bit in the DMs, on some comments, so on and so forth. It came up in conversations, so I sort of wanted to make a video, mostly so that I can reference it in future discussions. So I'm going to try and make it as quick as possible, starting from the S tier. And the S tier is Warhammer 1 and 2. I talked a little bit about this, like I said, in previous videos, when I Let's Played Warhammer. I think this is... Warhammer 1 and 2, I think, are easily the best Total War games ever made. And I think this is the best Total War ever was. There are some close contenders in the A tier, but I think overall, on the whole, with the advantage of some innovations, with technology being better, with better graphics, more advanced mechanics being able to be implemented into games, certainly a bigger budget and more development time, I think Warhammer 1 and 2 were the absolute greatest ever created. Next is Rome and Medieval Total War. I put those in the A tier because... Excuse me for a second. Probably should cut the video while doing that, but never mind. Just close the door. So, A tier is Rome and Medieval. In no particular order, I put them both here. Medieval innovates quite a bit to the Total War formula compared to Rome, but Rome is, to this day, one of my favourite games. I could go back and play Rome right now, and it is old, it has aged, it has its problems with both the AI, with some gameplay mechanics have proven to be just more interesting and better than the ones that are present in Rome. Diplomacy is lacking, and you really need to learn what the AI means when it gives you please don't attack us or we will attack diplomatic or the diplomatic offer. That's basically their version of a non-aggression pact. So you really need to learn the in and outs of the game to really appreciate it and like it, because it is a little bit silly and inaccessible at times, but nevertheless, with all its problems and quirks and deficiencies, I still think Rome is amazing due to the aesthetics, the visual, one of the best tutorials in all of Total War. Very, very immersive, and the music, oh god, the music. Medieval, I mean, it just built upon the same actually the same engine as Rome, and there's a funny little nod to Rome, I guess. If you start up Medieval, you cannot start up Rome on the same PC at the same time, despite them being two completely separate games. It'll say Rome Total War is still running, which is a nice little nod, and it's funny. I don't know if it's been patched at some point, but I did try that when the game came out. They're basically, they're very similar to one another in some aspects, in terms of like the quality and the good time that you're gonna have with them, and the map is more or less the same. That's not entirely true. There's new cities and castles in Medieval, but you are fighting in Europe, and it's a relatively similar map. I guess transition from early medieval ages to the late ones are done phenomenally well. There's even colonization, like early colonization. You can discover the Americas. The Mongols and the Timurids are done really, really well. Problem with these two, why they're not at S tier right now, is they're a bit too easy. Like, I've done it all with these two, and once you've learned them in and out, they're a little bit too easy, so yeah. Alright. Next, I'm going to jump down to the F tier really quickly, because I need to put in the first Total War there. It is what it is. Time was not kind to the first Total War game. It really, really wasn't. I appreciate it in the sense that it got the franchise off off of nothingness, off the ground, and into glorious heights such as Rome and Warhammer and Medieval. But it's just not good. I'm sorry. You can barely get it to run, and even if you do, there's problems. The game just hasn't aged well. It's not that fun. It's not that good. It's funny to think that it came like Rome came afterwards. It's absolutely amazing. I just really love the aesthetics of Rome. Have I talked about that? I'm pretty sure I have, but I'm just gonna say it one more time. I love everything about Rome Total War. Medieval is phenomenal as well. Next we get to the B tier games. And the B tier games, there's going to be a lot of B tier games here. Shogun, Total War, sorry, that's a D tier game. Shogun 2 Total War, Rome 2, Napoleon, and Three Kingdoms. Let's do Three Kingdoms down here. Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I'm going to go with explain the D tier. Shogun Total War isn't by any means a horrible game, but it came out. Actually, sorry, Rome came after Shogun, not after the first Total War game. It's again time. It's just been trampled over by new innovations, new engine, and all of that. It doesn't work as well. It doesn't work as well. It's an old game. It has actually shockingly little to do with the previous Total War games you know and love. So, again, I appreciate that it got the franchise off the ground, but, 2020, yeah, just not a thing. Then, on to the B tier. So, Napoleon, Rome, and Shogun 2, I think, occupy a similar space in terms of the quality and the problems that they have. So, Napoleon and Empire had this weird combat issue where the where the AI would continuously reform ranks, and the fighting just wouldn't be as exciting as it could be for the period. I mean, the fighting at the period and lines and muskets and all of that, line infantry, can be very, very nicely done. It can be gorgeous to look at, and there are some mods that kind of fix this. I think the Civil War one for I believe it was for Empire, does a really, really good job of making this combat just a little bit more interesting, visually at least. But the AI had so many problems with pathfinding, with the sieges weren't all that great, and even with Darth mod or any other overhaul mod, it just wasn't that great. Rome 2 had, a horrible start. A horrible, horrible release. But it got really, really good a few DLCs later, or a few patches later, not necessarily. You didn't necessarily have to own the DLCs to play it. So, despite the tragic release, Rome just didn't nail a few of the things that Rome 2 just didn't nail a few of the things that Rome and Medieval did for me, and it just came up short in some areas. The Civil Wars, although much needed in the late game to make the game interesting, I think just were done a little bit lazily and just didn't make a lot of sense to me, because the more I became powerful and the more I consolidated my power, the greater the risk of civil war there would be. And to have my own beloved First Legion abandon me, well, yeah, that's just not very nice. If there was more control over that, and if there was a way... Well, there is a way to avoid the Civil War. You can just never have it. It's not that difficult, but then it becomes gamey, and certain things just become locked to you. Also, the age at which the generals died felt a little bit off, and even fixing that with mods had its own balance issues, so... It was minor things that keep Rome from going up. So, battles for Napoleon, minor things like that for Rome, and Shogun. Well, Shogun was really, really good, especially with the Fall of the Samurai DLC, which is kind of a shame that it isn't here. Shogun was, I'd like to think, and I think I'm fairly right with this, Shogun was a sort of experiment for Creative Assembly. They tried what was a different engine, or at least was it a different engine? At least it looked very, very different. I think it was a different engine from Napoleon, but it looked very, very differently, and it felt very different. And then they tried with new weaponry, like Gatling guns and cannons, and the naval combat was changed, and all sorts of new things were implemented, and it worked well. It worked incredibly well. But the size of the map was a limiting factor, and the fact that a lot of the factions had to deal with the same units was kind of limiting as well. It just didn't have the size and the grand feel of a Total War game to put it in the A or the S tier. So that was the only problem, but the combat was amazing. diplomacy between the different factions was a little bit lacking and a little bit limited, especially later on in the game, where you really could use something like that. Now it's, you know. I just noticed if you dare to put Rome 2 in the FD, I'll be mad at you. From the person that made this this tier list. Alright, no, it's in the B tier, don't worry, it's a good game. I like it. It had a horrible release, like I said, but it is what it is. Alright, then we go over to the C tier, and there we put Attila, Empire, and Three Kingdoms. Now, I know Three Kingdoms is much beloved by many people today. I understand that. However, personally, Three Kingdoms didn't really do it for me. The fact that every faction had the same units was a major downside. I didn't like the UI changes from Rome to Three Kingdoms. Thrones of Britannia I haven't really played much. I'm going to put it in the D tier. I did test it out a little bit. I don't think I need to talk much about Thrones of Britannia. I think most people know why the game didn't work out. Why it feels like an overhaul mod of Attila and yet is a full-price game. It just didn't work. It just didn't deliver. It got boring. It tried to streamline things that didn't need to be streamlined. The unit choice isn't all that great. The dynasties and stuff like that don't really work as well as I'd hoped. But then again, it's just all this is just personal preference. Three Kingdoms, though, I think a lot of people would put it in the A or even the S tier. To me, it's C. And like I said, it's a matter of personal taste. I don't think there's anything objectively horrible about Three Kingdoms. I think it did a lot of things extremely, extremely well. The only thing I think it could have done a lot better was the unit level, not the unit, the hero leveling. Because the game, especially with the non-historical or the fantasy setting, or the fantasy option of the campaign, has such a high focus on dueling, on hero and agent actions, I think a Warhammer-like system for leveling in Three Kingdoms would have served the game a lot better than the system it currently has. But there is a large variety in both how you can play the game, diplomatically or with more military action, with you know, buying regions and stuff like that. That was a great addition. Diplomacy, I think, went forward a heck of a lot more with Three Kingdoms than almost any other title here. I love the diplomacy changes that they implemented, and I hope that this carries over into future Total War titles. But a few things like the way the battles play out, the feel of the game when it comes to the battles, the way unit balance is done, and all of that, I think some of those things that are in a large part due to personal preference and taste bring this down to a C level. Objectively, what I think how the game could be better, Warhammer-like system for heroes. Also, some of the balance is really off. Like, if a unit has 95% missile resistance, everyone will shoot that unit because it's not 100. And you can cheese the AI significantly that way. And I don't mind that. I actually love abusing the AI in Total War games. It's like one of my favorite things, but the way that, you know, they've addressed some of the Warhammer cheese and abuses and exploits, but by doing that added new ones I didn't really like. And initially at release, when I played it, artillery was insanely powerful. You could wipe out units, especially, God forbid, you're playing on smaller unit scale. You could wipe out a whole army just with artillery and, like, the bare minimum of forces to hold the front line. So yeah, it was a good game. It was a pretty good game. It was difficult, in my experience. But then again, I didn't play a lot of it. It's fairly difficult, and I think, you know, that works to its advantage rather than disadvantage. But I don't see Three Kingdoms, for me personally, being above Rome, Napoleon, or Shogun, simply because I've played thousands of hours in all of these games, an insane amount of time. I've played Rome for literal, like, I think over 2 to 3, maybe even 4 or 5,000 hours. I don't know. Medieval a little bit less. Rome 2 I've played a fair bit. Napoleon and Empire I've played an immense amount. But what's wrong with them? Well, Empire is just worse than Napoleon, honestly. Napoleon just did everything better apart from the map. If you could give me an Empire map in the Napoleon game, I would put this at an A tier. Despite all its problems with the pathfinding, the AI, the sieges, etc., etc. Oh, the sieges, by the way, I didn't really talk about for Napoleon. The siege of Paris looks just like the siege of any other village in the game most of the time, which, yeah, severely lacking. But anyways, same with Empires is the reason I'm mentioning that. So, yeah. They had loads and loads of potential, especially I think with naval combat of the time. It could be made really interesting, and we've seen games do naval combat of the period and make it very interesting. And the huge time span of Empire and the immense map, for me, still make it one of the games that you really have to play, because there's 3 continents for you to explore and fight on. Well, technically 4, because North Africa's there as well, and there's India and Afghanistan and huge chunks of Asia on the European theatre, and it's there's Egypt too, and just a huge map. All of Europe, all of North America practically. Yeah, it's just, it has so many good things to it that it's a real shame that the diplomacy, the balance to some extent, and the horrible AI really drive it down like 2 spots, plus the completely lacking sieges. Alright, and finally we have Attila. So Attila Total War is, to me, just worse Rome. It failed to live up to the quality of Rome after a few patches, and after the, I think, Augustus edition, was it? And the Imperial edition or whatever. It just failed to live up to the quality. The Charlemagne DLC did actually live up to Rome, but it was on a smaller map and with fewer factions, so, you know, it's just a little bit worse than Rome. But the base game, God, so many problems with the AI on the campaign map, just burning everything and leaving you an empty map. The economy was just weird, especially with like the Roman factions. The economy was just no. Actually, that's kind of a problem in Rome too. Later down the line, you actually lose money by conquering more territory because your corruption gets higher, and it doesn't compensate the fact that you have a whole new city making you money or a whole new province making you money, which I don't necessarily hate if and only if you have a huge empire, but it happens not that late into the game, and you know, it's just, yeah, same thing with Attila. Also, cavalry in that game is still broken to this very day. Can we please find a way to fix it? It's unit balance just makes the game unfun, right? Unit balance just skirmisher cavalry and heavy cavalry is just, it just doesn't work, right? The battles are just worse Rome, basically, in so many aspects. But again, this is all subjective. Anyways, this is my tier list, though. So, yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about any of these games, or what I feel about them in greater detail, or anything, feel free to ask me down in the comments below. But, yeah, again, this is all just purely subjective. This is how I rank the Total War games. If you agree or disagree, tell me down in the comments below. It's, again, this is a lot of this is personal taste. So yeah, that'll be about it. Thank you for watching. Have fun. Take care. Bye bye.